Step into the captivating world of the Behind the Curtain podcast, where your dynamic hosts, John Dyer and Dr. Mohamed Saleh, bring together a wealth of 60 years of combined experience in healthcare and manufacturing. Join us every week as we delve into intriguing topics, weaving unscripted conversations that promise to take you on an unpredictable and enlightening journey. Gain valuable insights for your continuous improvement adventure as we navigate uncharted territories with enthusiasm and expertise. Welcome to a podcast that goes beyond the ordinary, unraveling the mysteries behind the curtain of knowledge.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Behind the Curtain. I am one of your hosts, John Dyer, and with me is Dr. Mohamed Saleh. And we are continuing our discussions about employee engagement and open communications. And last week, we talked about silos, and we hinted at the very end that we would bring up structure, organizational structures. So that's going to be the focus of this week's podcast. So Mohamed, why don't you start us off? What are some of the different structures that you've seen and the advantages and disadvantages of those?
Yeah, when we talk about open communication, we've been really focusing on it from a traditional vertical organizational structure. And so I want to talk about it today. Is that the right structure? Because I think there's some value to be seen in different structures. And one of the structures that I have seen healthcare starting to move towards, which I think is a very powerful structure, and structures that I've seen and built myself, was that when someone gets diagnosed with, say, cancer, for example, the organizational structure might have a nursing team, and they might have a radiology team, and they might have a physical therapy team, and they might have lab teams. That's all vertical structures. However, to treat oncology, you need a horizontal structure. And from the moment you get diagnosed in a specialty office until you get medical oncology, and then radiation oncology, and then surgery, and then after surgery you get into a medicine unit on a floor in a hospital, and then after that you have to get physical therapy afterwards, and a nursing home and a skilled nursing facility. And when you look at that continuum of care, one of the things I've seen healthcare institutions do is they start creating what they call institutes. And what that an institute is in a manufacturing term, that's a value stream. And looking at from the intake process of being diagnosed until being treated, and how do we actually create a structure that supports that vertically. And so if I'm a nurse that lives in the oncology institute, from a budgetary standpoint, sometimes I live in a nursing budget. But I'm a decentralized individual who actually reports to the president of an oncology institute, or a neurology institute, or a cardiology institute. And so I think when people say, do we centralize or decentralize, that's a really interesting thing, because people centralize a lot just for cost savings. What you need to do, or what I have seen that works at least, is you need to centralize first to create one standard of care. What is the basic standards? And then you need to decentralize back into those value streams. And when you decentralize back into the value stream, you create that shared mental model around, hey, how are we going to treat cancer? How are we going to be the best at this? And it doesn't matter if I am a radiologist, or I'm a radiation oncologist, or I'm a surgeon. We all have the same purpose of saving a life. And so we all have this shared mental model, is how could we communicate more effectively? And if one of us discovers something or maybe mistreats something, how could we as a team come together to save that individual? It's not about us anymore. It's about that individual. And obviously in healthcare, it's a life that we're talking about. So the urgency of having a shared mental model becomes higher. But in other industries, there isn't that urgency sometimes. And you see those silos. And if the organizational structure is designed so that the person of one department doesn't talk to the person of another department because of their structure, there might be value of flipping the paradigm and structuring your organization by value streams, that way you can make sure that everyone is rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, and that's a great example on the healthcare side. Of course, on the manufacturing side, I've seen something similar, a similar kind of approach. We're used to that vertical hierarchical structure and various departments that, again, could be in silos, like we talked about last week. Well, how can you destroy those silos? We talked about, having common measures towards a common vision, better understanding of what happens in each department. But I tell you, the one way to destroy the silos completely and permanently would be to change the organizational structure.
Yeah.
Now, people tend to think poorly of that. It's like, oh no, it's the structure of the day. A new leader's coming in. First thing they're going to do is change the structure. And then, it always tends to go back to the way it was, after a year or two. And then that just creates chaos and people, get disenfranchised by all that.
Yeah.
But what this kind of structure is again, like you said, going to the horizontal versus the vertical. And that's what in manufacturing would be like focus factory teams. So let's say we have a particular product offering. That let's say in a particular plant, we have 3 major product offerings. Well, the vertical structure would be, we'd have a purchasing department, we would have a, machining department, we would have a plating, painting department, we'd have assembly department, we'd have a shipping department, that kind of a thing. Whereas the horizontal, you'd say, okay, we're going to take the person from purchasing, one person, 2 or 3 machinists, 2 or 3 people from the plating department, one of the assembly lines and part of the shipping, and they're now all going to be part of the same focus factory. So it's almost like running a small business within a large business.
Yep.
And one of the things I love talking to people about is that when you do have that kind of mentality of a small business, how would you run this if this was your own?
Yeah.
If you were all part owners in this new focus factory we're setting up, how would you run it? How would you do things differently?
Yeah.
And they're all measured the same way.
Yeah.
So they're all measured. Now they may have a few individual goals, but the majority, over 50%, is based on how that focus factory performs.
Yep.
So now we all have to be pulling in the same direction because we're either all going to win or lose together. So yeah, if there's something in the machining department that could be done differently in order to help the painting department, maybe instead of just throwing all the parts into a bin and they're all mixed up and nicked up and dinged up, maybe we could take them off the machines and hang them on racks that get rolled over to the paint department, and the racks get hung on the line instead of individual parts, things like that. Well, if that helps us improve our quality and throughput and the customer's more satisfied by that, then we all win.
Yeah.
So yeah, doing that kind of horizontal. Now, one word of caution though, because when people have done that, they still have the various departments, right? We still have a purchasing department. We still have an engineering department. And we still have manufacturing. And so what sometimes they'll try to do is have everybody have 2 bosses, right? All right, I'm going to be reporting into a focus factory, but at the same time, I'm going to report into the head of purchasing. That rarely works. We call that matrix kind of organizations. And again, what can very easily happen, especially if there's still this feeling of competition between the department heads, now all of a sudden I'm getting marching orders from one boss that conflict with the marching orders of another boss, or priorities. Hey, you'd better be focusing your time on this, not on this. And now I'm being pulled in two different directions. I don't know what to do because I can't please both. So I'm just going to shut down and
Yeah.
not do anything.
You
And
know,
I've seen that happen many, many times.
yeah, I've done the good and the bad in those examples. And one of the things I've learned, I'll just use myself. I was the head of a lean office for 12 years, and I had around 30 practitioners, and I had to assign practitioners to value streams. Well, I was the support function, no different than HR and IT from corporate that was supporting those value streams. And even though we had a horizontal structure for each of the disease types, um, I had facilitators and senseis that were focused only on certain value streams. Well, they had to be decentralized into those value streams. And what we did is we made very clear that my goal, or what I hold my people accountable for, was maintaining certain standards. The delivery of service of a Kaizen, the delivery of service of training, the delivery of service of strategy deployment. Like, there were services that individual was giving to that department, and all I was holding that person accountable for was from a standard standpoint. From a strategy standpoint, and what that person should be working on was the responsibility of that president for that value stream or that institute. And we had to make it very clear, because if it's not clear, I get directions from both. I want you to do this and I want you to do this. No. You do whatever that value stream person wants you to do. I'm here to maintain the standards of this. So, like, back to our example, there might be someone who oversees, I want you to maintain the standards of nursing. Like, that is a standard. And so my job is focusing on standards, while the other person's job is focusing on strategy, and focusing on directing that team. So that person becomes a decentralized function that lives and breathes in that team. And my responsibility from a performance standpoint is that, are we delivering to that service line the service that we said we were going to deliver? And as we advance our services, does that person adopt the new standards for that service? So I become more of a standard work coach for the services that we're provider, less the boss of that value stream.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the way that you would have to approach that. Is you're exactly right. It's more of a focus on maybe the day-to-day execution would take their directions from the focus factory,
Yep.
whereas the standards, the rules of engagement, those kind of things are defined at the departmental level. But I tell you, it is fascinating to me, and this is one of the things that I really enjoy, kind of digging into with different companies. Very subtle things can have a huge impact
Yeah.
on that. I remember when Six Sigma was first rolled out at General Electric, right? And at this time, I was working in one of the plants. I had all the technical resources in the plant reporting into me at that time, and we were trying to go down this path of team-based continuous improvement, right? We had all the employees were trained, they were on teams, we were making good progress, really moving the ball forward at a pretty good pace. And then corporate assigned us a half dozen Six Sigma black belts to come into our factory, right? Now, the original structure was that they were solid line to the plant that they reported to and dotted line back to a corporate centralized entity, right?
Yeah.
And actually that worked very well. We were able to engage those resources directly into the teams that we had already formed. The priorities were based on how to meet our customers' needs better, faster, better quality, that sort of thing. And so they were getting directions and priorities directly from the Focus Factory teams that they were supporting. And I mean, they were integrated day one. I mean, it just was seamless, flawless. And in that first year, we made a ton of progress, absolutely ton of progress. The problem, though, was that, again, we're still under the old mindset, especially at General Electric, in this would have been in the 1990s. Late 90s, early 2000s. Still that mindset, the only way to get promoted is to be recognized and, above your peers. Well, the head of the Six Sigma organization didn't see a path of making themselves look good, right? Because all these resources were embedded, the plants were doing better, they were getting all the credit. So what this person did is they went to the, executives and said, hey, I really think that we need to change this just slightly. Instead of solid line to the plants and dotted line to me, let's have it dotted line to the plants and solid line to me. And they were like, yeah, okay, I don't see any big deal about that. We'll go ahead and change that. Yeah, sure, no problem. Boom. Overnight, the whole situation changed, right? The leader of the effort, Six Sigma effort, pulled all the resources out, gave them new marching orders, new directives. It was all about cost reduction, all about ways to make their department shine, and be able to tout their successes of look how much money we've saved the company, to justify their existence, maybe even expand the reach and add more resources. And so our same people, same half dozen folks, came back to our plant, and their attitude was 180 degrees different. It was, you're not telling me what to do. I've got my marching orders. We're no longer part of the teams. We're here to cut costs. And they became bulls in china shops. I mean, just wreaking havoc. I mean, to the point where the shop floor folks stopped talking to them. I mean, just like, okay, you're not even with us anymore. So we're not even going to cooperate any longer.
They lost the trust.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, but it was amazing to me how that one subtle change flipped the whole narrative overnight.
Well, that's why this is all under the umbrella of culture, because, right there, from an employee participation, from a two-way communication, from an open communication, it was all deteriorated just by a structural change. And so
Right.
I truly believe in decentralized models. When you like buy out 3 or 4 plants at the same time, yes, you have to centralize it initially to bring one standard of how these services are being provided. Once you get that, it shouldn't take that long, maximum a year and a half. You should then be able to decentralize that, have them live in the business, solid to the business, maybe dotted to you. And then you could go from there. But you also have to physically change. Like if you have GMs that are over certain things, you might have to change presidents over certain value streams. And you have to kind of change it up a little bit because the horizontal structure seems to be the one that is prevailing in organizations that adopt it, and the hierarchy vertical structures are losing a lot by continuing to have that model.
So think about this, because we keep talking about what's the root cause for why these things don't happen, right?
Yeah.
And again, in my mind, it all boils down to the criteria used to promote and recognize people, right? Imagine changing that criteria to not what have you done for me lately, but what have you done for others lately, right? In other words, I'm no longer going to judge you based on your actions. I'm going to judge you based on how well you help other people perform in their actions.
Yep.
Think how different things would become, right?
Yeah.
Now we're going to reward coaches instead of dictators.
Yeah.
We're going to reward teamwork versus individual performance.
Yeah.
Right now, the problem with that, and this is why you'll get tons of pushback, is, well, how do you measure that?
Yeah.
That's very subjective. You'd almost have to in order to do your performance review, I would need to talk to all your peers and say, how well did Mohamed help you this quarter?
Yep.
On a scale of
360.
1 to 5, how
Yeah.
well did Mohamed help you with your objectives and your ability to get things done? And do that for everybody.
Yeah.
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 But again, that's so far out of the norm of what we're used to, 150 years of practice,
Yeah.
that'll companies would struggle doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if they're doing it without the understanding of why they're doing it.
Right.
I saw that, companies that are successful are horizontal companies. So let's switch to horizontal companies. Well, you need to have a shared purpose of why you're doing that. And we're doing it because here's the problem that we're solving for. The structure should be solving a problem, primarily open communication, and creating a shared mental model and a purpose, without understanding the why you're doing it. I think you could do it and still not gain the benefits.
And you're going to run into great resistance from those who were successful under the old model.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
If I've done a lot of work to make myself look good, and now all of a sudden you're wanting me to be part of a team and make others look good, I'm not comfortable in that model. So I'm going to do everything I can to revert it back.
Yeah.
By throwing stones
at this model.
Towards this new model. Yeah.
100%. 100%. All right.
Well, and actually will lead us to a future topic on blockers of change. I think that's coming up pretty soon.
It is. It is.
Why do people block change?
Yeah. We'll get into that in a few upcoming episodes. This was an amazing episode. I hope our listeners really took away here the importance of a horizontal structure and the importance of decentralization, how that impacts open communication. We'll see you next week on another episode, and thank you for having us. Take care, John.
As we draw the curtains on another fascinating episode, we wanted to express our gratitude for joining us on this enlightening journey. If you're hungry for more captivating and thought-provoking discussions with John Dyer and Dr. Mohamed Saleh, hit that subscribe button to ensure you don't miss a beat. Until next week, keep exploring, stay inquisitive, and stay inspired. See you on the next Behind the Curtain adventure.